Hi, and welcome back to my series, Proven Answers to Life's Biggest Questions. In the first episode, I give a scientific proof that God exists. In these next episodes, I'm going to get more specific as to who that God is. In one of those episodes, I'll be giving a proof that the Bible is a reliable document that literally describes truth. In another episode, I'm going to zero in on the very controversial book of Genesis and literally prove that it's scientifically true. But in this episode, I'm going to disprove one of the main pillars of the religion of the secular world, evolution. First, though, let me address some of the feedback I got from the first episode. All of it was positive, except for one, and actually that person was representative of a lot of what I hear as far as people and how they feel about Christianity. I often hear, well, I believe, or I believe, or I believe, and then they describe what they think is the truth about God and the Bible, and also Jesus, the afterlife, etc. But then when I ask them to prove what they believe, they say, oh, well, I'm not good with words, or so-and-so said. Those aren't proofs. So it's a good thing to just ask people what they believe is the truth about God and the Bible and Jesus and the afterlife, but then ask them to prove what they believe. My claim is that unless they believe in a literal translation of the Bible, they won't be able to prove it. I mean, I feel like it's amazing that people are so casual about something so critical, their afterlife and the quality of their life now. Perhaps it's because life is so filled with distractions. Or perhaps they are afraid to go against the general consensus in the secular world. So I hope that my work will give people more confidence in God and a literal interpretation of the Bible, because there's so much peace, confidence, and good direction in doing that for our lives. And in that way, I'm a before and after example myself, as you may have seen in the first episode. Regarding belief, well, now people might say, well, you believe in the Bible, you believe in God, you believe in Jesus. To that I say it's not a matter of belief. It's a matter of accepting what the Bible said and what Jesus said based on proof. Whereas all the things that I've heard people use the word believe for aren't able to be backed up by proof. It's usually just a feeling on their part and just them accepting what some person or some organization said. But that means that the foundation for their feeling is based on them believing in some other person or organization. So it's still a matter of belief. But I've never heard any solid proven truth to back up what they believe in. That's why, although I did get into a lot of the things in the world that claim to say what the truth is, I had to do my own investigation. I kept moving on till I could finally find something that was provable. That was kind of based on my science background too, that I needed to do that. I didn't want to be just another believer. I wanted to know what was the truth and could it be proven. And that investigation resulted in my books, The Proof and Why Are We Here? Another word that is along the same line as belief is faith. So people say, you have to have faith in God and faith in the Bible. Well, don't Muslims who blow themselves up have more faith than most Christians who don't live a Christian life, whereas the Muslims actually believe it to the point of giving their life up. So, when I hear the word faith, the way I deal with it is I say, well, yeah, I have faith. The Bible says we're supposed to have faith, but I take it as not blind belief or blind faith. I take it faith in something that's been proven, and also faith that God's going to do what he says he's going to do in the Bible. And I started that in 1983, and it's still working. So, yeah, I have a lot of faith in God. Now, let's deal with what religion is. Webster's dictionary says religion is a cause, principle, or system of beliefs held to with ardor and faith. Now, some offshoots of that is secular. What's secular? Well, secular is not spiritual. I'm still dealing with Webster's dictionary's definition. Of or relating to the physical world and not the spiritual world. Now let's talk about humanism. Humanism is a doctrine, attitude, or way of life centered on human interests or values, especially a philosophy that usually rejects supernaturalism and stresses an individual's dignity and worth and capacity for self-realization through reason. When you put those last two together, you get secular humanism. And that's what I'm saying is the religion of the mainstream. And secular humanism is defined in Webster's as humanism viewed as a system of values and beliefs that are opposed to the values and beliefs of traditional religions. Notice that it is calling secular humanism a religion, though, just not a traditional religion. So basically what a religion does is it defines existence, gives an explanation for this existence that we're in, that we just appeared on this planet. There's a giant universe out there, and we're going to have to leave at some point. So that should be of interest to everybody. So a definition void would be in the world if it wasn't addressed. So it does that, it defines existence, and then it also gives a moral code to live by. And the current moral code of secular humanism is political correctness. Now, that's not working. Statistics will show that that's not working, and here's some of the statistics. Now, is there a moral code that is absolute and not just given to relativism or what each person thinks? See, because each person is trying to live life so they can feel good and not feel bad. Well, that's already carved in stone. So, this comes from my engineering side, by the way, and my scientific side, to read what is the absolute moral code. And the absolute moral code is that which causes good feelings overall, like between us and between other people, and keeps away bad feelings. And I found that the Bible nails it when it defines the moral code that we should live by. That's why I'm into it, because it worked. Okay, so one thing that I've been doing is, if you look at my other YouTube videos, is I've been out debating and having discussions with the leading atheist activist in the Portland area here. His name is Truman Smith. And so he used to be a Christian. And so I wondered, well, why did you change from being a Christian to being an atheist activist? And he said that there's two reasons. One was that we are not a mind separate from the physical. In other words, we're not a spirit. So let me show a video here that proves that we are a spirit.
Whilst near-death experiences change lives, they've also given some individuals extraordinary experiences that they would never have dreamt of. The most intriguing examples are of blind people becoming sighted for the first time. Vicky Naratuk had been blind from birth.
I've never seen anything, no light, no shadows, no nothing. A lot of people ask if I see black. No, I do not see black. I do not see anything at all. And in my dreams, I don't see any visual impressions. It's just taste, touch, sound, and smell, but no visual impressions of anything.
In her early 20s, Vicky was involved in a serious car accident.
The next thing I recall, I was in Harborview Medical Center and looking down at everything that was happening. And it was frightening because I'm not accustomed to see things visually because I'd never had before. And initially it was pretty scary. And then I finally recognized my wedding ring and my hair, and I thought, is this my body down there? And am I dead or what?
We can't bring her back, it's a crash job.
They kept saying, we can't bring her back, we can't bring her back, and they were trying to frantically work on this thing that I discovered was my body, and I felt very detached from it. And sort of, so what? And I was thinking, what are these people getting so upset about? Then I thought, I'm out of here. I can't get these people to listen to me. And as soon as I thought that, I went up through the ceiling as if it were nothing. And it was wonderful to be out there and be free, not worry about bumping into anything. And I knew where I was going. And I heard this sound of wind chimes. It was the most incredible sound that I could describe. It was from the very lowest to the very highest tones. As I was approaching this area, there were trees and there were birds and quite a few people, but they were all like made out of light. And I could see, and it was incredible, really beautiful, and I was overwhelmed by that experience because I couldn't really imagine what light was like. It's still a very emotional thing when I talk about this because there was a point at which I could bring forth any knowledge I wanted to have. And it was like this place was where all knowledge was.
Okay, the other reason that he gave was evolution. So like I've been saying, this is a basis for the secular religion in the world. It's in our textbooks, the school textbooks, it's on TV, and that religion has constantly been working to push God, even a mention of God, out of the mainstream. Okay, so now that's going to be the main theme of this episode, to investigate, can the theory of evolution be proven? Now I'm saying that it can't. So there are two ways to prove that the theory of evolution is not true. One of them is to prove what is true, and another one is to disprove all the things that are used to prove evolution. So in this episode, we're going to do the latter. And then in the next episode, I'll prove what is true. Okay, we're going to start with the main thing that is used to support the theory of evolution. And I call that the dating game. But organizations that conclude those dates have been proven to be unreliable. So here's some statistics about that and some examples about that. Okay, here's the holy grail of atheists, what I call the dating game. Most of their conclusions are highly dependent on dates. And people hear these millions and billions dates so many times that they are accepted in the basic public body of knowledge, including on TV shows and in textbooks. This is so important that I would highly recommend it be studied. A basic tutorial of the dating process can be found at the link below. But if errors can be found in the results of the process, then that brings the credibility of the process into question. The other thing that brings it into question is that these results don't agree with the Bible, which I've independently proven to be valid. Here are some conclusions from highly regarded dating laboratories. On the left there, you see what the sample is that they were taking. And then in the third column, you see the age from a dating method that they used. And then in the fourth column, you see the dating method that they used. But in the second column, you see the actual date, the actual known date that these samples came from. So then how can these laboratories be trusted? By the way, the dating theories and methods have only been around for around 100 years. And regarding how and when things came into being, the proven God could have made things any way that he wanted, and at any rate that he wanted. And because God's ways work best on personal and societal levels, and because the Bible has a 100% credibility rating of being all true, which I'll show in a future episode, we shouldn't choose a modern theory or imperfect process over it. A good article that has a lot of examples of dating errors is in the following link. The next thing I'm going to do is show that a lot of what's been used to prove the theory of evolution have been hoaxes, even to the point where they've been criminally prosecuted in courts. So here are some examples of those hoaxes. Okay, millions of fossils have been found, but there have been no transitional forms. In fact, there have been missing link hoaxes, and I'm going to show that later. Also, there have been incorrect interpretations of the dates of the fossils, and I showed that a little while back. But there have been a lot of missing link claims, but they've been proven to be hoaxes. One important phenomenon in the fossil record is something called the Cambrian explosion, and it showed that all animal types came into being in a very short period of time, not a gradual succession of macroevolvements over a long time like evolution claims. The creatures in these layers come from all the major groups of animals alive today, including fish, which represent the vertebrates. And it's called an explosion because a sudden explosion of them in the rock record came up. Okay, here are some examples from science that show that the Earth can't be millions of years old, like evolutionists would claim. And the source of them is by a number of top scientists who engaged in what they called the RATE project, R-A-T-E. And one of the things they found is there was carbon-14 in diamonds and rocks and coal, but there should be virtually no helium or carbon-14 in rocks, diamonds, or coal if they're actually millions or billions of years old. The fact that there is indicates that the Earth is only thousands, not billions of years old. By the way, in carbon-14 dating, anything that has carbon-14 in it can be no older than 60,000 years. Another example is the Grand Canyon and Mount St. Helens. Since the Mount St. Helens explosion in 1980, up to 400 feet of strata have been formed. It disproved long-held geological beliefs in a number of ways, showing that millions of years are not needed for rock layer, canyon, and fossil formation. Another example that goes against the long dates of the old Earth theory is the geologic column. The geologic column shows layers of fossils on top of each other, with the newer ones higher up. But that has only been seen in textbooks. It's never been observed in nature anywhere. And yet it's used as a major justification for evolution. But when students see this in textbooks, they take it as fact. Another example is dinosaur remains. Here, once again, carbon dating. Some dinosaur remains have been found to have soft flesh and red blood cells. That totally proves that dinosaurs didn't end millions of years ago. What you're seeing now is a drawing by German professor Ernst Haeckel. And that is supposed to show
that various classes of vertebrates are virtually identical in their earliest stages, that's the top row there, and become noticeably different only as they develop. Well, the bottom row is what they actually look like. And Haeckel was convicted of fraud. But still, these drawings are found in textbooks. At his trial, he said, "Where actual data wasn't there, I made stuff up. I should feel utterly condemned, were it not that hundreds of the best observers and biologists lie under the same charge." All of this, combined with many other examples, shows that public education isn't really education. It's indoctrination into a no-God worldview. And this indoctrination requires censorship. Their goal is, as Hitler and Stalin said, that whoever controls the schools and the textbooks controls the nation of tomorrow. And hasn't that turned out to be true? Not true for Hitler and Stalin, but true for the indoctrination. St. Paul warned Timothy about this in 1 Timothy 6:20. It says in the Bible, "O Timothy, keep that which is committed to thy trust, avoiding profane and vain babblings, and oppositions of science falsely so called." And it says that some will indeed turn away their hearing from the truth, but will be turned unto fables. And it says that many will be ever learning and never attaining to the knowledge of truth. I'm going to show now the errors and missing links. Okay, here's an amazing one. This is Nebraska Man. Harold Cook, a rancher and geologist from Nebraska, had found a tooth in 1917, and in 1922 he sent it to Henry Fairfield Osborn, a paleontologist and the president of the American Museum of Natural History. Osborn identified it as an ape and quickly published a paper identifying it as a new species, which he named Hesperopithecus haroldcooki. But the drawing was the work of an illustrator collaborating with the scientist Grafton Elliott Smith. Now here's the truth of the matter. 5 years later, the entire skeleton was found that went with the tooth. As it turns out, the tooth was from a pig. Yet people who see this drawing in textbooks feel like they've seen a caveman, but they've only seen a drawing, and a fictitious one at that. Okay, here are some other errors and missing links. Neanderthal Man, originally based on just one diseased arm bone. The press ran with it, though. Subsequent findings have proven it to be from a human with rickets, and that's why he was hunched over. Here's another one, Piltdown Man, in 1912. This was used by Clarence Darrow in the Scopes trial, but it was revealed as a hoax in 1953, in that skull parts from animals and a human were combined, and the teeth were stained and modified. Then there's the famous Lucy, but Lucy was assembled from parts over 2 miles over 1 year. And then there's Java Man, 2 parts of an animal skull made up Java Man, probably an orangutan. Human skulls have since, by the way, been found in the same layer of rock. Forerunner.com wraps this all up in a good way. They say, the science of finding and identifying man's prehistoric ancestors runs in a predictable pattern. A press conference is announced, the discovery of an ape-like ancestor revealed, with an artist's impression of what the creature looks like, and the discoverer becomes famous, earning money on lecture tours. The actual fossil bones are scanty and the imagination runs wild. The Neanderthal Man is an example of one find that turns out to be totally human. Once this find is removed as an intermediate form, you can expect another great discovery to save the day. The latest discovery is Lucy, which I just showed the proof against. Regarding DNA, here's a quote by N.A. Takahata. Even with DNA sequence data, we have no direct access to the processes of evolution. So objective reconstruction of the vanished past can be achieved only by creative imagination. So that's what we're witnessing, people's imagination, but not facts. So the conclusion is that evolution belongs to science fiction and not science, in spite of the desperate attempts by people who see evolution as the fixed and anything else as a variable. But it's not objective science. It's just using science to try to justify a philosophy. Okay, in this popular picture, the second and third never existed. And the last two are modern humans. And remember, this is just a drawing, not a photo. Yet it is in textbooks and is taken as fact. As testimony to that, a very honest admission by a physics teacher indicates the passionate commitment of the establishment scientists to naturalism, that is, not including anything that's supernatural like a spirit world or God. Speaking of the trust that students place in their college professors, he says, "And I use that trust to effectively brainwash them. Our teaching methods are primarily those of propaganda. We appeal, without demonstration, to evidence that supports our position. We only introduce arguments and evidence that supports the currently accepted theories and omit or gloss over any evidence to the contrary." So then why is that propaganda so effective? Well, here's a quote by Adolf Hitler. "If you tell a lie long enough, loud enough, and often enough, people will believe it. And people are more likely to believe a big lie than a small one. This is why it's important to scientifically prove a non-physical realm and that the theory of evolution is unsupported in reality and easily countered." By the way, let me put out this challenge to anyone who believes in the theory of evolution. Email me at dennis@ultimatetruths.com and give me your proof of evolution. Now, don't quote any scientists or use any textbooks. Prove it directly to me.
By the way, the religion of secular humanism also has its religious zealots. Just like they criticize Christians as being zealots, some Christians, they too are zealots. And therefore, they are no better in reasoning this issue of life out. Here's Webster's Dictionary's definition of a zealot. A person who has very strong feelings about something, such as religion or politics, and who wants other people to have those feelings. It implies blind and intolerant devotion to a creed, opinion, etc. Okay, here's something that dawned on me during one of my debates with the atheist on television. I thought, why don't we see evolution anywhere else? Why is it all just on planet Earth? And on planet Earth, it is very specific and detailed and evolved. And here were my points. If the universe has been around billions of years, and if the inherent impetus of physicality is to evolve, why don't we see even an iota of evolution on any other planet? Especially given that asteroids and meteors have shown that they have the same amino acid building blocks as on Earth, and they also have a lot of water. Water's found on the moon, on Mars, all throughout the universe. So why am I also interested in this? Not just to show that God has a great way for people to live that's expressed in the Bible, but there's also a lot of very bad things happening in the world in the name of evolution and the secular religion. First of all, let's start with the subtitle for Darwin's book that started evolution, Origin of the Species. Also, Hitler used evolution as justification for eliminating the Jews. Margaret Sanger, who started Planned Parenthood, used evolution as justification for eliminating blacks. And think about it. Through abortion from Planned Parenthood, a huge percentage of black pregnancies are ended. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. And in the next episode, I'm going to prove what is true, and I'm going to prove it scientifically, and how that truth is in line with what is in the Bible.